Hey guys, welcome back to Workshop Wednesday. My name is Zena Means. I'm the director here at the Fashion Incubator, and we're talking about technical design. So technical design is a series that we're running to explain to you what kinds of jobs are available in our industry and all the different ways that the technical design role interacts with the design team, the factories, the mill. So today what we're talking about are the specifications. So this is our second day talking about specifications, and we're going to do it from a slightly different perspective than the last time. So what we're going to do this round is we are going to talk about how those specifications get translated from the design team to the technical designer to the factory and back again. The role of the technical designer is to truly be a liaison, someone who goes between the designers and the factories and explains to them, how is this going to get put together? So I wanted to share with you something that we can sometimes do during kind of that product development phase. And it's something called critical points of measure. So something that we do here is, of course, every good technical designer has their handy dandy measuring tape. And so we're always prepared to double check the measurements and proportions that we're requesting from the factory. So it's really key that we get a chance to share with them exactly what it is that we want in order to get the effect that we're going for. And so what I wanted to do is just to share with you one screen here. Let me cue this up. We do have one here for you. All right. So you can see this here is our critical point of measure. So this is a slightly different way of doing some of our point of measure specs. Sometimes what we'll do is, especially when we're in that initial prototyping phase, not the production graded pattern. This is our sample size pattern that we're looking to create for the very first time. And so what we do is we look at how we may follow, give some indication of how the proportions should be followed to the pattern making team and what effect we're going for. In this particular sample, we also sent along a muslin. So if you drape, or if you do some light prototyping of your own and you finally got something exactly the way that you want it, we actually send that along with these critical points of measure. So we will like mark and mock up on the muslin or the toile. It's just kind of it's like a rough draft, so to speak, but it's like a 3D, you draped it on a dress form kind of thing. And you'll send it along with this critical point of measure. And it just helps everyone communicate a little bit more clearly about what the true intention is. There are times when we'll say, follow the toile, or follow the muslin exactly, so that you know that everything is coming out exactly the way that you want it to. But what we also do is we make sure that we take our handy dandy measuring tape and we make sure that we measure every key element in the design very, very closely, and we communicate it here. So this is one way that we work at times, where we will actually diagram out all of the points that need to be observed. What happens at the neck drop? What happens at the neck width? What happens at the center front placket? What happens, what's a drop from the side slit? Some of the differences in the front body measurement from the back body measurement. We go through all of these things very, very, very specifically in this style in order for us to be able to get to something that we are actually looking for. So this particular style requested a center front body length from the highest point shoulder, a little bit of lingo for you, CF and HPS, 28 inches for the center front body length. And so here you can see this is where I showed that 28 inches from the very top of the shoulder all the way to the front, the bottom of the front of the shirt. Then on the back, I say that I need center back body length from highest point shoulder 32 inches. And so this is where I've measured from the highest point shoulder again, all the way to the bottom of the garment. And here's where I've made a note that it's 32 inches for that entire length. So what are some of the reasons why we would go through such detail in order to do this? The key, so there's a few things that the technical designer is doing that's key here. So I'm going to close this up, stop sharing, and I can talk to you a bit more directly. So there's three things that are happening that I want to make sure that we communicate during our time here today. One is that it is imperative that the technical designer serves as an interpreter for the designer. If you are the same person, then you will have to make sure that your measurements and intentions are exceptionally clear about the aesthetic and style that you're going for in your design. I've definitely worn both hats before, as have a lot of designers. However, if you're working with a technical designer, that technical designer is going to be responsible for helping to translate your vision into a feasible product. And that is going to be through the critical points of measure that really anchor the style and design. A lot of the proportions that you're going for in the collection itself, and kind of making sure that's consistent across all of your styles. This is something that we really want to, this is really something that the technical designer takes very seriously, because their job is to make sure that it turns out looking like the vision of what was intended by the designer. The second job that the technical designer is doing is they are focused on translating that vision to the factory, very specifically communicating with the factory throughout the process to make sure that that garment is going well. So they're interpreting the designer's wishes, and then they're translating to the factory. So that's that go-between role that I was telling you about. So they're taking those specifications, and they have kind of made them so that they are workable, that the factory should have fewer comments to come back with. However, if there's questions about how the garment is requested, then they will make changes as appropriate. And so they may make updates based on cost. There's also an opportunity to say, hey, you know what, you're using quite a lot of this fabric. You could save money if you're willing to reduce the body circumference. Say you've got a really full skirt. If you're willing to reduce the body circumference by, just a few inches, you can save quite a bit of money if you do that. Or maybe it's about how the garment is designed. And if the width of your goods is too wide, typically not the problem. If the width of your goods are too narrow, then you may have to create smaller cuts in your design in order to accommodate the fabric. The technical designer is aware of that and may make recommendations about how you may make those changes while disturbing the garment the least. So you don't want to really change the aesthetic or the design intention of the style. However, you do want to make sure that it's feasible to cut and sew together. And so if you run out of fabric because the piece is too wide, then you're going to have to find places to strategically put in extra seams. And so the technical designer may make recommendations to you about where those seams could be hidden so that it's not as perceptible to the customer or even to the designer. So the last thing that's really key here for the technical designer to do is to really check and verify what comes back from that prototyping sample. So we've done the checking and the verifying, we've done the interpreting from the designer, we've done the translation to the factory, and then last, we're going to check and verify that those specifications were observed. And so it's going to be really important to get a chance to take your tape measure again. You're going to go back in and we're going to check all of those critical measurements to make sure that they were all done correctly. So I'm going to go back in and share with you. I'm going to go back to this area here. So whenever we go and say, okay, we requested 28 inches at the center front and 32 inches at the back. In my comments and revision section, I will say whether or not those were done correctly. And if I accept those, I may find that based on what I requested and whether or not they did it as requested, may determine whether or not I approve the sample. So, regardless of whether it's absolutely right or absolutely wrong, you may find that once you see the sample in person, you may feel differently about what was requested. Or you may find that, the factory did a great job interpreting the spirit of the design, and the measurements were actually different. However, it communicated your design even more correctly. Now, a lot of times a technical designer is going to make sure that all of that is worked out ahead of time. And so this checking tends to be a lot more, a lot smoother. However, there are times whenever things get past, any human eye. And so it's possible that you'll have still corrections to make. So we just wanted to kind of put those out there for you to understand a little bit about what the technical designer is doing. They are interpreting the designer's needs. They are translating those needs to the factory, specifically around the measurements of the style. And then they are going to check and verify the samples when they return. So I hope this information helped you. If you found this particularly helpful, share this with a colleague or a friend that you think would enjoy this content. And if you haven't joined us on our email list, send us a quick note at fashion.incubator@austincc.edu. Thanks.